We're live now with our third Facebook Live episode. Welcome to Kintec Facebook series. I'm Dr. Michael Ryan. I'm the director of Kintec's R&D department, and I'm joined in the clinic, the studio here today by Ryne Melcher, an esteemed ultramarathoner, and we're going to talk to you about running today and answer your questions about trail running, road running, and everything in between. Now, I've done some running in the past, and I'm a reasonable recreational runner, but Ryne, on the other hand, is quite a pedigree in running. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've done?
Thanks. Yeah, I've been a runner myself for about 22 years now, coming from a track and cross-country background, jumping pretty quick into the ultramarathon world, which, for those that don't know what an ultramarathon is, basically anything longer than a marathon, so starting at 50 kilometers and they go upwards. The longest one that they have is a 3,100-mile race if you're really interested in spending a few months running around circles in New York City. We can talk about that later if anybody wants. I've had the honor of representing Canada 8 times as an athlete at World Championships, ranging from 50 kilometers to 100 kilometers. And after retiring from the competitive side of running, I got involved coaching and managing the Canadian National Ultramarathon team, which I've had the honor of doing 4 times. Since 2013. So, yeah, that's my kind of brief running history. And
perfect. And you can check Ryan's bio out as well as all our other run clinic details on our kintec.net website. And also, you can find the last 2 episodes for our Facebook Live on the Kintec website and on our Facebook page for anyone that wants information on our general foot health Facebook Live series. So we have some questions that people have emailed ahead of time, so we'll get to those first. Feel free to, the great thing about Facebook Live is that you can send us your questions live and we can answer them real time, and so we'll get started with that, and feel free to, to be involved as we go along. So the first question here, I think is best directed to Ryne from Keeler.
yeah, perfect. So we had a question from Keeler, and the question was, what kind of nutritional tips can you give to prospective ultramarathon runners? Some that know me on a personal level might be snickering at the thought of me answering a nutrition question. I'm a little old school, I guess you might want to say in that regard. When I first started running ultras and long distance races, there wasn't a lot of the kind of fancy things that you see at aid stations and available in stores to purchase now. Coke and Mars bars is kind of my nickname when it comes to nutrition. But there are some very basic things that, whether it is Coke or Mars bars, which may not be the healthiest option out there for you. There's a couple generic things that are kind of staples across the board. One would be consuming 20 ounces of water an hour. Yes, that's a little generic. Obviously, somebody larger or shorter, that number may shift a little bit, but 20 ounces of fluid per hour. Obviously, if it's a ridiculously hot day, if it's 35, 40 degrees with humidex factor in Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit, that rate will need to go up. If you sweat, have a high sweat rate, that number per hour has to go up. And 200 to 250 calories per hour is a good starting figure of what you need to get in the body to get that body to continue to move forward. So working off of that. Actually, a quick story from a marathon clinic that I taught way back when I lived in Ontario, Guelph group. We did a long run. Halfway through, we stopped at McDonald's, and everybody had to order something from McDonald's, be it a soda, hash brown, egg McMuffin, what have you. And the point was to get calories into the system, and kind of the take-home message of that was like, if you can get McDonald's into the system in the middle of a long run, you can get anything into your system in the middle of a long run. So. Experiment is a good take-home message. You don't have to experiment with McDonald's, obviously, of that being your nutrition. But there's goo gels, there's different drinks, there's different things. There's vega, vegan, again depending on your nutritional diet. But try different things that work for you. Just because something works for me doesn't mean that exact same thing is going to work for you, or what works for you is going to work for your running buddy. Trial and error, try them on those long runs that you're going out and doing, because you don't want to experiment with anything new race day. And when it comes to getting that fluid and calories in, it's not, oh, an hour's up, I need to slam back a 20-ounce bottle of water and I need to ram 250 calories. in my mouth. You want to be kind of methodical about putting that in. A good thing is looking at your watch or setting your watch for a 10 or 15 minute interval as a reminder to keep drinking. You don't want to be binge drinking because then you just get a heavy stomach and it sloshes around if you're just consuming all of that very quickly. So you want it to be almost like an IV drink.
And you can get hyponatremia.
You can get hyponatremia as well.
But does that ever happen in ultramarathon?
It has happened in ultramarathon. It is rare, but
Depends on the weather, probably.
it can happen, and it has happened. But obviously, from an efficiency standpoint, you want to make sure that you are just constantly getting those calories into your system, constantly getting that hydration into your system. And again, experiment. Try some gels, try some bars, try some different things. And there's no one magic bullet that's going to work for every single runner out there. It's going to be a little bit unique to you, and you'll find that out by trying things out and take notes of, hey, I felt really great at the end of this long run. I felt really strong at the end of this. Well, what did I eat and what did I drink that maybe contributed to the success of that? And obviously, if you find those successes, just keep going, repetition, do it again and again and again, and if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Now, I'm guessing you probably don't need to take salt tablets if you go to McDonald's.
You don't need to take salt tablets if you go to McDonald's. I think they're pretty
It's
high.
gonna take you a while to guess. You're going to get your sodium nutrients.
content.
But that being
there,
said, it doesn't have the mix of electrolytes.
It's probably a pretty poor nutritional balance of what you're getting in. But some of the core staples are there: calories, some caffeine, which is good for the long haul, and
Protein.
Some protein, some fat. And
We have a question from Joni here on the topic of ultramarathoning, so I'll interject here from some of the other questions. She's asking how far in advance do I need to start training for an ultramarathon from a 25 to 50K, which I guess ultramarathons are anything longer than 42K?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So what sort of lead time would she need?
I can actually speak from personal experience. I went and I kind of found out about ultras when I was 14 and was like, hey, this sounds exciting. I'm gonna take a stab into this world. And I had never run farther than 15K in my life, and then I went for a 50K training run because I was training to run a 24-hour event. And
Did you walk the next day?
I could not walk the next day. It becomes challenging to go downstairs. It becomes challenging to stand up off the toilet after. So obviously there's, it would have been a lot better to spread that out and train properly. You can successfully get ready if you have a solid running background of, you can comfortably run a half marathon. I'd say you can be ready in about 4 months if you're willing to put in the time. That's the key part, is you can't just dedicate a day or two to be out there training for it. This is something that is going to take 4 or 5 days a week to put in that time to get those training runs in. 4 months would be adequate to get ready for a 50K. If you're going to get ready for a 50 mile or a 100K or a 100 mile, that's more of a process where you would have a 50K as a step in between as well. So you would, over 3 to 4 months, get to a 50K that you could do as a training run, not a race per se. And then maybe, 6 months later, you're looking at that 50 mile or 100K.
It will obviously depend on your background.
And again, assuming that you have some running experience, like let's just say that you're really comfortable running half marathons, you can do that. If you've run a marathon, it's a painful 7.8 more kilometers, or just shy of 5 miles. But obviously, if you're ready for a marathon, you're probably pretty darn close to being ready for a 50K.
Do you think you need a longer lead up for a marathon distance in the trails than a marathon on the road?
I'd almost argue you need maybe a bit more lead up on road. I find the recovery on road is harder. It beats the body up a little bit more, and for the most part, there are some people that are very goal oriented and very time oriented on trail. But road is just all methodical. It's about those splits. It's about that pacing. It's about that goal, be it a Boston qualifier, a New York City qualifier, or age group, or what have you. So I almost find that takes a little bit more time to nail and refine paces, whereas to just go out and complete a trail marathon, it's more of that experience of you're enjoying the journey and you're enjoying the day. The watch isn't as important.
Right.
So.
I feel like we should clarify for our viewers maybe what hyponatremia is. For those of you not in the sports medicine world, this was the a big talking point. It was sort of the sexy disease du jour in sports medicine about 10 years ago, when runners were literally drinking themselves to death because they were consuming so much water that and they were sweating that their sodium levels in their body decreased to a level that they weren't able to maintain their water balance, and they would subsequently go into sort of a water shock. And it's part of the commentary that sports medicine as a field likes to make with respect to how many people are running marathons now compared to what used to be running 20 years ago, and how we just need to be sensible when we take advice with respect to nutrition. Listen to your body when it comes to these sort of things, and in particular with ultra distance, it's I think advice from people like Ryne are great, because you do need to have some guidelines going into this. I'm going to move on to the next question, because this relates back to Keeler's question. This one from Gita. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right. Now, Gita normally runs and does training and racing on the road, and he's asking, what do I need to do before trying a trail race? And I can speak from experience here, where I ran for probably about 15 years on the road, and everything was time. What was my pace to the nearest within 5 seconds per kilometer pacing. And that's part of the thrill of and the excitement of road running, is really seeing where the envelope of your body's speed is. The approach to trail, though, is totally different. I think that's something, Gita, that you want to consider. Don't be so focused on time, because for instance, the trail races themselves aren't a fixed distance. There's not really a 10K race over here that will be comparable to a 10K race over there. And chances are they're probably both not even 10K. One might be 9.5, the other one might be 12K. Recently, last summer, I did the Whistler Alpine Meadows. Great course, beautiful. I think they advertised it at 25K, and they ended up being 26.5. I didn't care. No one on the race cared, because it's sort of a ballpark, and your goal is to finish the race, get through that, obviously to within your own ability as best you can, and to feel strong while you're racing, and that's really the best part. I guess from a competitive standpoint, often people are thinking, I want to be competitive with my age group, because I want to have some sort of metric in that respect. And so this is obviously where people are devoting their training to that. And I think in that preparation, training on trails, and in particular training on similar trails to the race, really matters. And that's something that really affected me at the Whistler Alpine Meadows, is that we got to about 2,000 meters elevation, and I hadn't done any relative high elevation training up until then. And so we got to the Alpine area, and it was super cool views with the fog and the mist coming through, and they helicoptered in a aid station. So I'm sitting up there having a hot chocolate in amongst the scree and above the tree line, and it was just surreal. And then I went to go ahead and run, and I was just gassy trying to go up this small little hill, because I wasn't used to. It's just really at the edge of where that thinner oxygen starts to matter, but because I wasn't used to it, it affected me a little bit more. So prepare for the race, know what the race course is. Probably look at the profile, I think, matters a lot, because there's a huge difference in the amount of elevation change you'll see on these road races. So that's something to look at. And I'll say this, I know this is almost heresy in road running, but don't be afraid to walk. There, I said it. People aren't getting mad at us here on Facebook Live, so that's something that you can use as a very effective strategy. And in fact, on the ascent up there, the people that power hiked did some of the better times. And I'll say that probably shoes matter. You have some experience in shoes, Ryne. What do you think people should consider when are all trail shoes made the same?
No, and that's a great question. Is a trail shoe? There's that same spectrum that there is with road shoes as well, and you need to find something that fits for you, something that works with your foot. But one of the stark differences is on the bottom of the shoe. There's a lot more grip and traction on a trail shoe than there is on a road shoe. So obviously, going onto a trail run, especially one that is technical or muddy or some slick surfaces, is having that extra protection on the shoe is just paramount to, most importantly, being comfortable on that trail run. If you're taking a road shoe that doesn't have the protection to it, your feet can get pretty beat up, and that's a reason that people end up dropping out of trail races as well. As it's not fitness, it's not cardio or their ability to cover that distance. It's because something went wrong, either injury-wise with the body, or their feet are just so uncomfortable and so mangled from wearing improper footwear that became the limiter for them. So a trail shoe, as I said, it will have some more grip, stickier rubber on the bottom to just give you a little bit more traction running across rocks and roots, especially if it is wet. Like if you're in the Vancouver area, you're probably used to doing the odd trail run in a monsoon out there. On the bottom they have what's called a trail shield or a rock plate as well. So in the forefoot of the shoe, that's just going to give you a little bit more protection to make sure you're not feeling all those jagged rocks and roots protrude through the bottom of the shoe, and again make that ride comfortable. But in terms of which style should you go with, if you've worn a Brooks road shoe, probably Brooks trail shoe is a great place to start because you're going to be familiar with the fits of that particular brand. But just the same as when you went through that process of selecting a shoe for the roads, is you got to try a couple different ones out to make sure it just fits to the mechanics of your feet. Again, having a look at somebody assess your mechanics is incredibly important to make sure that you have the right equipment out there as well. So,
yeah, thank you. That's and it's funny how the differences in the categories for road shoes. You get shoes that have bigger lugs than smaller lugs, and the pitch of a trail shoe really matters, I think, as well. I find when I'm running around some of the trails around the Capspeary area in North Van, you get in those steeper pitches, and if you're in a slightly higher heel pitch, I find I can't descend as quickly as I normally could in a pair of like Ultras or something with a really low drop. That being said, having that heel pitch can be helpful on the road, just to give you a bit of take a bit of tension off the calf Achilles and give you a bit of that leverage forward. So, this is where you suddenly find if you had a few pairs of road shoes, you might now have a dozen shoes underneath your bed when you combine both road and trail training. Hooray for shoes!
Can never have enough.
Can never have enough. Yeah. Then you need different shoes to match your outfit too.
Exactly.
So, this is
complicated stuff.
Fashion forward gentlemen like ourselves. Okay, let's move on to I guess Stephanie's question, Ryan. So do you want to take a?
Yeah, I'll take this one. The question from Stephanie was, I want to get into running, but I'm a little self-conscious about it at the moment. How should I get started? And what do I need to do? First, congrats on wanting to get into running. Sometimes making that decision is actually the one of the hardest steps, and then the other hardest step would be to actually get out there and do it. Start slow. Don't feel that you need to set a world record or beat your friends or beat a colleague or a coworker. Run for yourself, and don't worry about if you're running in a group. And a group is a great place to kind of have that motivation and accountability as well, but there is no problem with going out and starting on your own as well. Kind of like a Vegas, if you were there gambling, quit while you're ahead. Don't feel that you need to run yourself into the ground to start off and just completely whip yourself and have that be a negative experience. It's okay to finish a run and feel like, hey, I could go out and do this again tomorrow if I needed to. That's a great thing to start running. To kind of use the gym analogy for New Year's, how many times do you see like January 1st, January 2nd, you can't get a machine anywhere at the gym. Come mid-February, it's a ghost town because people have bit off more than they can chew. They've tried to do too much too soon is another key. Definitely when you're starting, incorporate run walk, whether that's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, a minute on, a minute off, and you can kind of progress week to week and go through and make that a 2 minute on, 1 minute off, then a 3 minute on, 1 minute off. But you want that to feel comfortable. Talk test while running. Obviously, if you're running with a group, this is easy. You be social with each other. If you can't carry out a conversation, you're running too hard and you need to slow that pace down. If you're out running by yourself, you can have a conversation with yourself. I do that all the time when I'm out there running. It looks a little awkward when you run past people, but hey, that's okay.
It's helpful to have those little Bluetooth headset things so that people might think that you're just talking
you're on an important business call that you're handling. But if you can't talk while you're running, if you can't string a sentence together, you're running too hard. Slow that pace down a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit more enjoyable. And again, you're going to see that progression go. And the biggest piece of advice is, if it was easy, everyone would do it. The first 3 to 5 weeks, you'll find it may hurt a little bit more than you want to. You may not enjoy it as much as you thought you would. But if you can get over that hump, if you can get 3, 4, 5 weeks in, I guarantee you'll kind of be clear sailing from there, and you may actually find that you look forward to going out for a run, and you love putting on your running gear to go out for a run. And even on those days where you don't feel like doing it, you don't have to go out and run every day. Off days are okay. But on ones where you want to drag yourself out but you're not quite sure, put your stuff on, get dressed, and go out for 5 minutes. Run 5 minutes away from your house. Sometimes you find that gets you and carries you 10, 15, 20 minutes away from your house. But at least going through the motion of doing that, you'll find out within that first 5 minutes of like, no, I do just need a day off today. And I've done that while getting ready for World Championships as well, where I go run and I just don't feel it that day. And there's nothing wrong with turning around and taking an off day, taking an extra day. That's not a sign that you're a poor runner or weak or out of shape or it's not for you. It happens, and you have to respond to what the body's telling you. But most importantly, if sometimes it's just by putting all your stuff on and going out the door, you find like, okay, I can actually go.
Think of the long
more
game.
times than not.
Missing one run for the sake of then extending your running, keeping it enjoyable for months to years. You got to be patient when you start running. It takes a long time to get that adaptation, and before you really savor and love the movement. And then you get to a point where you realize you can't live without it.
And it is a fun journey, and there are highs and there are lows, like anything in life, and that's what makes those really great runs that you have. If you didn't have those runs that were tough and weren't as fun, you wouldn't enjoy the reward of those epic runs as much. So.
Okay, we've got our producers looking at us here, so we've got a few minutes here. We've got 3 more questions to get through, so we do want to try to answer all the questions.
Rapid fire.
Big
here, finish on so, interruption.
Right. Well, this is when I got to run a tight ship here. So Cohen writes in, when do I know that I'm ready to start training for a longer run? He wants to finish a 10K by the end of the year, and any advice on how we should train him to get there. So giving myself 45 seconds to answer this question, Cohen. I would say you're ready to start training for a longer run when it feels easy and you can run whatever distance you can do comfortably. Doing what Ryan says about the talk test, this is easy for you. And really the big thing here, I think, is that the next day and after that run, even during the rest of the day from that run, if you don't feel stiff, and you will know what I mean when you just that post-run tiredness, stiffness, achiness that you'll feel in certain muscles in your legs or your back or your ankles or your feet. Hopefully over the course of about 3 months, that achiness should start to subside after you do certain runs, and then you'll finish whatever run you have in the week and it will feel like you can do more. If you're at that stage, you're ready to start piling on some more volume in your week. I would say the research that we've done out at the UBC Sports Medicine Center said that 13 weeks is plenty of time to prepare you through a walk-run program for doing a 10K, and that's not a problem. Bear in mind that it's arguably harder to train for 5K from getting off the couch to do 5K than it is that transition from 5K to 10K. So once you start developing a bit of momentum in that respect, it's much easier to do 10K. So I'd say you'd be ready to finish 10K by the end of spring rather than the end of the year. And so we'd want you doing a half marathon and joining us in the half marathon clinic in the fall near the end of this year. And consider weekly volume. Don't worry so much about what the big training program is, and that's actually a research study we're involved in right now to see the effects of spacing out your running over short little bits or with one long run and then a whole bunch of little runs over the week. So consider your weekly volume. That's probably the most important metric. If you can do 15 to 20K in a week, then you're ready certainly to do 10K. So build up there slowly. I've gone over time. Ryan, don't slap me.
It was close enough. Ish. There's always an ish.
Take it on from Amy's question.
Question from Amy was, what's the best kind of shoe for a beginner runner? We kind of touched a little bit on this when talking about trail shoes, if you've been with us the whole way. The biggest piece of advice that I could give is go into a store, go into one of the Kintec locations. It all starts with looking at how your feet move and what they do that is unique to you, and then matching the shoe that's best for what your foot is doing. Feet are kind of like snowflakes, no two are alike. I don't know if that's accurate enough. I'm sure there's two that are alike somewhere.
Probably not mathematically, but
each
people get
close
the metaphor.
enough. Each shoe For an example, here's a shoe that's very flexible, and this is going to be a very relevant shoe for some type of people that have mechanics that align with that. And then this shoe doesn't have a lot of give to it. And again, so there's kind of a full spectrum of, do you need control? Do you not need control? Do you need an orthotic to work in conjunction with you? And there's a whole series of questions that will go into it, but it's the most important piece of equipment for a runner. So it's something that we do take very seriously, and we want to make sure that that people get lined up in the best possible pair of shoes that matches what their mechanics and what their body and what their feet are doing. Because if we don't do that, then there is that potential, like I touched on earlier, of people quit running programs. People drop out of races because their footwear let them down. Their feet started to ache. They got blisters and hot spots and pressure points. So it is an entire fitting process, and there is a full spectrum of shoes out there. And for different runs as well, there's some that you would use for a longer run, some that you would use if you're going to do track work.
I love that analogy that you said to me, where different running shoes are like golf clubs.
Yeah.
That you use one type of shoe, like a street, for instance, for your tempo and your interval work, and then a sort of a beefier shoe for your longer runs, and having that alternating the shoes.
Yeah.
I've certainly found over the last year has really helped.
As you get more into it, yeah, I mean, a golfer carries 14 clubs in their bag, and a runner, if you're doing some trails and speed work and long runs, you might ultimately end up having 14 pairs of shoes in your bag as well. Obviously, if you're starting off, you kind of start with pair one, and then move from there. If you find that this is going to be a passion and something you want to do more, then there's various channels to keep adding things. But
we have another question from PJ Mekinen, who is asking about strength training. And what sort of strength training, such as CrossFits, do we think is good to help augment run training? What do you think, Coach?
There's a lot of value to it. Myself as an example, I was I was a running snob. I only ran, and I didn't incorporate. I didn't use time to stretch. I didn't use time to. I did a couple things at the gym for maintenance, but not as much as I probably should have. And who knows, maybe that prolonged my competitive career and my body from breaking down. But there is a lot of value to that. On an off day in your program, it doesn't have to be an off day from everything. It's just an off day from running. So you can go for a cycle, or you can go do some weights for maintenance, or you can get in the pool and go for a swim. It's almost like an active recovery from your run. So it's great to incorporate that into a training program. But again, kind of keeping all things in mind of the balance of if you start getting too much of that can then hinder your recovery for your next run. Be it a long run or speed work, that's important for whatever goals you've set out. But yeah, for sure, things like cycling, swimming, some light weights, you don't want to build up too muscle mass. Toning is probably more the appropriate term that you would be looking for. One of the things I liked, it was really weird, was the rowing machine. I don't know why, but I just had I'd only see how quick I could get to 1,000 meters, and compared to probably good people on a rowing machine, I sucked at it, but. It just, to me, that was a good. It kind of got the body moving, and it just kind of loosened things up a little bit, because stretching is against my religion, and now it's just kind of a bragging right. I haven't done it in 22 years, so why would I start now?
You might actually be stretching when you're rowing.
I was probably stretching while I was rowing. There is science to stretching, by the way. There is benefit to doing that, so please do that, and don't do what I did and ignore it for 22 years. But
yeah, because I've heard that strength training or resistance training of some kind helps the body be more robust as far as accommodating training. And then I guess as you get more specific, in the reference to CrossFit here, doing box jumps and with fit balls and things like that, it helps you develop a sense of explosiveness that you then have to then carry over into the track in a lighter pair of shoes, like use that sand wedge for shoes. Can really help augment your training, but do so under the advice of a coach, or with a really keen sense of your own sense of when you're going over the line. You really need to listen to your body when you're overtraining and not, because it does create another dynamic that can help you get to another level in performance, but it also comes possibly at the risk of fitness. I'd be leery about CrossFit and running, because if you have to do 50 of anything, because it's the CrossFit mantra, that may or may not be compatible with run training, because because CrossFit's preparing you for Armageddon, where we really want the strength training to prepare you for running, not necessarily away from
maybe a toned down version of that, or a modified version.
Right. But some of the exercises are great, though. Definitely. Okay, producer, we're okay for time? Okay, we're getting a nod that we can go on to the last question from Michelle. Semi-clinical question here. She twisted her left ankle hiking at the end of October, so about 4 months ago. I'm still having pain below the ankle bone, she writes. When I rotate the ankle, I put pressure on it. Any suggestions for exercises? Is it normal for a twisted sprained ankle to take so long to heal? She wants to start running again, but doesn't want to do any more damage by starting again too soon, which is very, is a good thing to be aware of. Certainly you should know, Michelle, that in sports injuries, sports medicine, inversion ankle sprains, where the ankle is going to be inverting this way, is a number one injury practically across all sports. I'd have concerns that you still have pain during movements on it, and one of the things that can happen with these injuries that is a bit more sinister, if that's the right word, is that you can have a mild fracture in one of the bones, and you'll know that if you're not able to hop on that foot at all, because there's not really a demand for stability so much. It's more power and the ability of the bones in the foot to accommodate the impact force. What you can also find is if as the ankle twists this way, the edge of the bone here, the tibia bone, it can create a little defect on the dome of the talus here. And so you can have they call it an osteochondral lesion, which just basically means the saran wrap cover on the top of the talar dome here gets a little nick in it. And that can be painful, and it can, because it's the position of the ankle when you sprained it, it can be in a specific part of the ankle, so it only bothers you when your ankle's in a particular position. So you'll know that if you do a deep squat and you feel pain, so it's only in that when your ankle's twisted forward this way, or if you rise up on your toes, you might feel it there, painful. If it's painful during any of those movements and it's greater than, let's say, a 5 out of 10, I'd talk to your family doctor to have a referral to a sports medicine to investigate that further. Provided it is just an ankle sprain and it's just taking a long time to heal, I'd suggest one of the big things why these are not treated very well is the fact there's the emphasis is only on pain as your return to activity. And so once the pain goes away, there's I think, mistaken view that everything is rehabilitated sufficiently to get you back to playing and back to sport, when actually the ligament now may be a little bit stretched, and more importantly, the little sensors that are inside of that ligament and around the joint have been damaged, and this makes it harder for the body to know when the ankle is being twisted again in that position. So it's sort of like the early warning detection system of the joint is sort of short-circuited a little bit, and so it's harder for the body to know when it's also in a vulnerable position. So a big focus is on balance exercises, and I was going to demonstrate a balance exercise here if we're able to go hands-free. There's certainly reference here that talk to your physiotherapist. They are great for assessing the ankle and for the potential for any sort of more severe ankle injuries stemming from that sprain, and also to gauge what your current ability is at, and then building your program. But to give you an example of something they might put you on, initially you might start off with this exercise, starting with both feet on the ground, standing here with one leg. Start on the unaffected leg, and it should be fairly straightforward and easy. Notice I'm not wobbling around. And then what you do is you take away vision by closing your eyes. So now I'm going to close my eyes, and you'll watch that I'm starting to wobble a little bit more. And when you take away vision, now your body is only using your sensors in the joint and your vestibular sense to keep your balance. And this movement of the ankle, as I'm doing that, is what's stressing that early warning detection system and helping to rehabilitate that. So after you do a few sets of those at 30 seconds and it becomes easy, then you can move on to a more unstable platform like a phone book or a big fat pillow or something. And so you do the same thing. So you step on the pillow, and this is a bit of a makeshift one here. Stand with your eyes closed, have your arms out for balance. Make sure you don't have any fine china or any wine glasses nearby, especially not full wine glasses, because then you're going to get red wine on the carpet and that's not good. So this is a little bit more challenging with my eyes open. Now I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to fall into Ryan's outstretched arms. No.
He's nowhere in sight.
Okay, so yeah, it's a good, and really I'm just working the muscles in my shank here, and in my ankle, and a little bit of the intrinsics in the foot, just to give that activation there. Do that on both sides for about 3 sets of 30 seconds each, depending on where your level is at. As you get more advanced, and things that the physio will get you to do is starting to jump onto a little Bosu ball. It's a little half-dome ball. So you jump onto the Bosu like that and try to maintain your balance. Do that with your eyes closed. And that way you'll really help rewire that ankle system back together. Okay, thank you. So I think that does it for us in this session of Facebook Live. Thank you for all your questions, and a really special thank you to my special guest, Ryne Melcher, for joining me in the studio and for fielding all those great questions on ultra distance training and footwear. So feel free to check out our the Facebook blog post. We'll have all in the show notes for any other details you have, and feel free to write any comments about this show. If you have any further questions, we'd be happy to answer that. So we'll see you next time, and we're out. Thank you.
Thank you.